Hello everybody, this is Mr. Lowe. Today we're talking about lesson 16-2, properties of quadrilaterals. Before we can get into a discussion on what the properties are, what makes a quadrilateral, we need to first understand what a quadrilateral is. Quadrilateral is a four-sided figure. So any four-sided figure, any one of them is called a quadrilateral. Quad meaning four. Brings us to our first shape, pretty much basic stuff here, rectangles. And a rectangle, by definition, has four right angles. So any shape that has four right angles is classified as a rectangle. And rectangles are quadrilaterals because they have four sides. You can also say, and this is kind of an added one, that the opposite sides of a rectangle are the same length. The opposite sides are always going to be the same length. Whoops, there we go. So opposite sides are going to be the same length. Once we get done with our rectangles, that's going to put us into squares. And squares are a little bit different than rectangles. Squares have certain properties, and a square is a square if it has all sides the same length. Because it's a quadrilateral, it has four sides. All four sides have to be the same length, and a square has to have four right angles. If it does not have four right angles, it is not a square. And I want you to notice something. A rectangle has four right angles. A square also has four right angles, and it has all sides the same length. So this gets us into our squares are really rectangles. They're the same thing. Squares can be a rectangle, but rectangles cannot be squares because not all rectangles have have sides all the same length. Does that make sense? So we got rectangles, squares. The last one is kind of a new one maybe for a few of you. This is a rhombus. And a rhombus is basically a square, but it does not have right angles. A rhombus has all sides the same length. So these are kind of what I would call them as diamonds when I was growing up. That's, way back when. But rectangles can also be rhombuses because rectangles have all four sides of equal length. Or not rectangles, squares, sorry. Now, rectangles, squares, and rhombuses are all parallelograms. Rectangles, squares, and rhombuses are all parallelograms. And a parallelogram has two pairs of opposite sides, parallel and equal in length. That is the definition of a parallelogram. So we've got rectangles, squares, rhombuses, and parallelograms. And that is going to take us to kind of the oddball of our little family here of four-sided figures, the trapezoid. A trapezoid is a trapezoid because it has one pair, just one pair of parallel sides. This side and this side are parallel to each other. They're not equivalent. They are parallel. So we've got a couple of different things we're talking about today. We are looking at rectangles, squares, rhombuses. All three of those are parallelograms. And finally, we've got the oddball, a trapezoid. A trapezoid is not a parallelogram because it does not have two pairs of parallel sides. So we're going to use today's lesson to kind of get us into what we are talking about in math class today. So let's go ahead and do a couple of practice problems. Let me get out of here real quick. And we will go to 16-1. And we will take a look at some practice problems just so you guys can kind of see what we're looking at. I'm going to be jumping back and forth from what we just saw and what the notes you just took to the practice buddy so we can kind of talk about it. So this is going to be another one of those days where you don't really have to do any math work. You're just going to have to figure out things. So this says identify the polygon, and polygon is just a many-sided figure. Identify the polygon using as many names as possible. Select all that apply. Probably means there's more than one. What you're going to need to do is check each and every one. So a rhombus, is this shape a rhombus? Well, let's go back to our notes and take a look and see what a rhombus is. A rhombus has all sides the same length. So I look at this shape and it looks like this is all sides the same length. I'm going to say yes, that is a rhombus. Now let's go back and think, okay, well, is it a rectangle? Well, rectangles have 4 right angles. And what's that thing that makes us know that this is a right angle? That little square right there. So if we have a square in our figure, it's going to be a rectangle. Whoops! Let's do this one. I don't see a square in here, and these do not look like they're 90-degree angles, so it is not going to be a rectangle. Is it a quadrilateral? Quadrilaterals were 4-sided figures. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Is it a square? Well, a square is a figure that has 4 sides the same length. All 4 sides are the same length, and a square has 4 right angles. We already know that these aren't right angles, so it is not a square. A trapezoid, again, we go back to our definition here. A trapezoid, that's not the bell for you. A trapezoid has 1 pair of parallel sides. So if I go back and look here, I see 2 pairs of parallel sides. It is not a trapezoid. Is it a parallelogram? It has 2 sides of parallel sides. It is a parallelogram. That should be our answer. And I'm telling you guys, it's going to be really, really tempting just to kind of click your way through and go really fast. Really, to understand what a shape is, you have to go through and break it down. So if I'm looking at number 2 here, I want to select all that apply. Is it a trapezoid? Well, a trapezoid has 1 pair of parallel sides. This side and this side. Yes, it is a trapezoid. Is it a parallelogram? Parallelogram has 2 pairs of parallel sides. I already said there's only 1. There's not 2, so it's not a parallelogram. Is it a rhombus? Well, a rhombus is a rhombus. Let's go back in our notes just to make sure. A rhombus is a rhombus because all 4 sides have the same length. The question is, are all 4 of those sides the same length? Nope, not a rhombus. Is it a square? Do you see any right angles? Not a square. Is it a quadrilateral? Quad meaning 4? Yep, it is a quadrilateral. Is it a rectangle? A rectangle has 4 right angles. I'm thinking it's just a trapezoid and a quadrilateral. So for today's lesson, you're going to be zipping through why is a square also a rhombus. Let's take a look at this problem. Because not all of them are going to be like the first 2. Why is a square also a rhombus? Well, a square has all sides the same length, and a rhombus has all sides the same length. That's kind of neat. The answer was right in our notes. No sides with the same length. At most 1 right angle and 1 pair of opposite sides parallel. 2 of the same length, 2 sides, or all sides the same length and 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. Bam-o. Well done. You guys, you are going to be working on Practice Buddy, or I'm sorry, Homework Buddy 16.2, as well as for some of you, we'll be doing the adaptive homework. The adaptive homework is going to cover 16.1 and 16.2. Again, the expectation is you're going to get everything done, and we're going to be good to go. So get your homework done, and I will see you on tomorrow via video.